Good evening, Desert Wayfarers. This evening, I'd like to start a series of videos where I discuss in detail the gear that I take out into the desert and why I do it. So, kind of a deeper dive into what's in my desert kit. And this evening, I thought we'd have some fun and start with a topic that a lot of people like, and that's knives. So, what knives have I carried out into the desert in the past, and why did I choose them originally, and why perhaps I don't carry them anymore? So, and I know that knives are an incredibly personal thing, and there's thousands of YouTube videos on knives, on the construction of knives, the manufacturers of knives, how knives work, and things of that nature. We're not going to go into that. We're just going to kind of stick to the idea of what knives have worked well for me and what knives have not worked well for me in the desert. So the first knife I want to start with is, of course, the classic Swiss Army knife. This is the knife that everybody kind of picks as their first knife. It was my first knife when I was in Boy Scouts. It's a classic. It's a forever knife. It's a great knife. Okay, everybody's had one at some time in their life. They're fantastic. They do everything you want a knife to do. They're lightweight. They're compact. Well, this one is. Yeah, as you well know, Swiss Army knives come in all different shapes and sizes and do all different kinds of tasks. So, Swiss Army knife, wonderful knife. Like I say, it was my first knife when I was in Boy Scouts, and it's near and dear to my heart. So, what's the problem with this? Well, what's our motto? Our motto is always sand is our nemesis, and sand is trying to ruin your trip. So the first problem that with this knife and with many knives is that it is a hinged blade. It's a folding knife, okay? And sand can get into the hinge here, okay? And there's many other things. Everything on this knife is foldable and it's on a hinge. And sand loves to get into all those little spaces and make it difficult for you to open this knife and clean it. So, while I certainly see how stiff that is, while I certainly love the Swiss Army knife, and I carry this around, it's not the knife that I take out into the desert. All right. So let's look at another knife that people are carrying these days. This knife is super popular. This is the Benchmade Bug Out. This knife has been popular for about the past 5 or 6 years. Everybody loves this knife. It is in I do too. It's a fantastic knife. Okay, it's a single blade. Many people use it for EDC, everyday carry, because of its lightweightness and its functionality. The mechanism is smooth. It opens very fast. Okay, again, a great knife, the Benchmade Bug Out. But again, it has a hinge. Okay, all right, it's on a hinge, and it's a not just, it's a fairly complicated hinge. It has this thing called an omega spring on it that locks the mechanism in place, and sand would love to get in there and prevent that from opening, prevent that mechanism from locking the blade shut. So again, there's nothing wrong with this knife. It's a fantastic knife, but it's not the one that I'm choosing to carry out in the desert. All right. Now, amongst the knife crowd, people like to carry big survival knife, big folding knives out in different situations. And again, this is another amazing knife. The Avispa, or the Vespa. Avispa, it's like Spanish for wasp. Okay, it's made by Randall Adventures. Again, a great knife. There's nothing wrong with this knife. If you're in a temperate climate or a wet climate, things aren't going to get into that hinge. Okay, a great knife. It's a big knife. It's far too big for anything that you will need out in the desert. Okay, people might carry big tactical knives or survival knives like this for self-defense or to chop down trees. Well, there are no trees in the desert, and there's no wild animals that are going to attack you in the desert. So you don't need a knife of this size. And this knife is heavy. And you're carrying so much weight with you in water weight that everything you need to cut back on weight is somewhere you have to look at. And so I like this knife. It's a fun knife, but far too heavy. And again, you know, it's got that liner lock. Sand can get in there. Not a knife that I'm going to carry with me in the desert. Okay. a nice knife, but again, not the one I'm taking with me. So, you're asking yourself, what knife do you carry in the desert? And this might come as some surprise to you because the knife that I choose to carry in the desert is a fixed blade knife. Okay, this is the SE Izula 2 fixed blade knife. It is a small fixed blade knife. The blade on here, the blade itself is a little under 3 inches, but the handle, I have, okay, fairly big hand. I can get my whole hand around that micarta handle, and it's not going to slip. Okay, so, but what is the real reason I carry this knife in the desert? Well, it has no hinge. There's nowhere in here that sand can get into and mess things up or prevent it from opening or prevent it from closing or wearing things down. So for the desert, I strongly recommend a fixed blade knife. And it doesn't have to be big because I know SE makes, 6, 7, large survival knives that, you don't need that. Okay, the smaller the fixed blade, I think you'll find it more useful in the desert. Again, you're not using this for self-defense. You're not chopping down trees. You're not batoning with this through big pieces of oak because none of that exists in the desert. So this is the knife that I carry in the desert, the SE3. So far, it's worked wonders for me. It does everything that I need a knife to do. So now the question is, should you pair this up with a multi-tool so that you have the best of all worlds? You have a knife that's always going to work for you. It's never going to get messed up with the sand. And then a small multi-tool for perhaps doing some repair. So let's look at that. So here's the SE3. Put that down there. And so the question is multi-tool. So I've always liked Leatherman. They were one of the first multi-tools to come out many, 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 many years ago. And I just kind of used them. Again, I like the Victorinox, the Swiss Army multi-tool too, but since I had 2 of these, let's look at these. So this is the one that I usually carry. Okay, it's the Leatherman Juice S2. I don't know if they still make that. It's a perfect little size. It has almost everything that I want on there. Okay, it has pliers, it has awls, it has screwdrivers, it has bottle openers, it has Phillips head screwdriver. It's an amazing little tool. However, it's a complicated tool. There's all kinds of joints and hinges, you can hear that, okay, that sand can get into. Okay, there's scissors, even the scissors have a hinge on them. So again, it's hard to clean this multi-tool. And so it's not something that I want to take out with me because every time I take it out, or even while I'm using it, it might malfunction. It might not work well. So again, not the tool that I won't necessarily want to carry out of the desert. A great tool, but not the one that I want. All right, so now what one am I going to carry out there? And I know this might sound crazy, but this is the Leatherman Micra. It is the smallest multi-tool that Leatherman makes. All right, and it has scissors, and it has knives and small tweezers, a screwdriver that can use with both a regular, a flat, and a Phillips head, a small knife, okay, a fingernail cleaner, which you need in the desert because sand is getting in there everywhere, including under your fingernails. And I think this is the perfect tool, multi-tool for the desert. But I know what you're saying. You're saying that's a hinge tool also, but everything in here comes out so easily that I can get in there. If the sand does get in there, and sand will get in there, I can clean this very easily, okay, with a Q-tip, with some water. So this tool, because its size and not a lot of hinging going on in there, I can clean this tool very, very easily. So my ideal pairing for carrying into the desert is the Izula fixed blade for all those knife needs out there, okay, and then for anything else that may happen is the Leatherman Micra. Okay, so weight is a consideration. Remember, you're carrying most of your weight in water. Okay, you're a minimum of 5 kilos, so maybe 10 pounds of water you're carrying out there, because there is no water out there. Okay, so you have to cut down weight everywhere else. Okay, so that's why the Azula, you know, you could, if you wanted to, you could actually take these handles off, these micarta handles come off, and you could just have a skeletal knife if you wanted additional weight loss. Okay, and then the Micra. So these are the two cutting tools, multi-tools that I carry out in the desert these days. Now, if you disagree or if you think you have a better or a different system, I'd like to know what you use out there in the desert or wherever you might be doing wilderness camping and things like that. So let me know in the comments if this is something that you'd be interested in to carry. Again, the Azula 2, fantastic knife. It's just almost indestructible. And if you look at any of the reviews on the Azula 2 on the internet, everybody loves this knife. This, I don't know about. So I'm still playing with this, still using it. And so far, it hasn't failed me. I enjoy using this. So different things, leave in the comments. Contact me if you have a different system or you have some different ideas of what kind of tools you need to carry in the desert. I want to learn from you. So keep on adventuring, my friends, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.